Friday, June 2nd, Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland, Conservative Leader Pierre Poilivre, and NDP Leader Jagmeet Singh traveled to Winnipeg to support their candidates running in the 2023 federal by-election. The by-election will be held on June 19th and includes two ridings in Manitoba, Winnipeg South Centre and Portage-Lisgar. While in Winnipeg, Poilievre held a press conference to speak about the carbon tax and plans to counter crime rates in Winnipeg. Multicultural had the opportunity to speak with Poilievre to learn more about his party's policies and platform.
Hi there.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. How are you doing today?
Excellent. Great to be with you. Thanks for including me.
Thank you again for this opportunity to speak with you and cover some key issues that Manitobans, Winnipeggers, and Canadians are dealing with. I know you're an incredibly busy man, so are you okay if we just jump right into it?
Yes, I'm ready to roll.
Inflation and cost of living continue to be a top concern for Canadians. Many struggle to meet their day-to-day needs while corporations continue to make record profits. Mr. Poilievre, what policies will your party implement to address inflation and cost of living?
Well, you're quite right. After 8 years of Justin Trudeau, inflation and interest rates are raging out of control. His inflationary $500 billion worth of new debt bids up the cost of the goods we buy and the interest we pay. That's why young people can't afford homes and families can't afford food. So here's my common sense plan. I'll bring home lower prices by ending the inflationary carbon tax and deficits. That will bring down interest rates and inflation. I'm also going to lower income tax so that people bring home more of their paycheck. That's a common sense approach. It'll make it possible for people to enjoy a good home, nutritious food, a good living, and a great life.
How will the Conservative Party address increasing income inequality in this country?
Well, the number one cause of inequality is house price inflation. When housing costs double, as they have under Justin Trudeau, it's great for those who own mansions, because their net worth goes up. But working class youth and immigrants are left out in the cold because they can't afford a house. Now, we know why house prices are going up. Basically, government deficits are driving up interest rates on mortgages, and government gatekeepers block construction. We have the fewest houses per capita in the G7, even though we have by far the most land to build on. And that's because we're the second slowest place in all of the OECD to get a building permit. And no wonder the Americans have house prices that are about half of what ours are, even though they have 10 times the people to house on less land. So my common sense plan will incentivize city governments to speed up housing permits. I'll require that big cities permit 15% more home building per year or lose their infrastructure money. But if they allow more home building, I'll give them a bonus, extra money, so that they're incentivized to build. Finally, I'm going to require every federally funded transit station have high density housing around and on top. I'll sell off 15% of federal buildings to turn them into affordable housing. This is a common sense plan to bring millions of homes for our young people, our working class, and our immigrants.
You mentioned transit stations. Out here in Winnipeg, for many of us, rushing home or heading to work, transportation, the roads just get clogged up. What is the Conservative Party's stance on looking at new alternatives to transportation with cities?
Well, I want to make sure every new federally funded transit station has high-density housing all around it, apartments and condos. So young people and seniors don't even need to own a car. They can live right next to the bus or train. I'm going to make it a condition of every federal transit project that they have high-density apartments all around. So that's the best way to. The problem is not that we lack transit; it's that we don't have houses next to transit. And often stations are located in places that have a scarce population. But we need to approve more density around transit stations. That will make housing more affordable and the commute to work more livable.
A big concern right now for many of us is healthcare here in Manitoba. Although there has been recent budgets which have allocated funding for facility upgrades and more ICU beds, years of budget cuts in Manitoba have left our healthcare on the brink. And I know myself from the Pembina Valley, the Menzies Medical Center that was only a couple of years ago built in Morden still can't meet the demand. So how will the Conservative Party help reduce wait times in Manitoba if elected?
Let's start with the low-hanging fruit. We have 20,000 immigrant doctors and 32,000 immigrant nurses that are banned from practicing in our hospitals. Why? Because they have no simple way to prove their qualifications. My common sense plan is a blue seal test for every regulated profession. It would be one test that every professional in their field would have to pass, and that would be a test available to immigrants. And it would allow immigrant professionals to take a test and get an answer within 60 days whether or not they can practice based on their abilities, not based on where they come from. I'll also give out 30,000 small study loans for immigrants to take time off work in order to study up to the Canadian professional standard and get licensed to practice. And I'll make it possible for future immigrants to begin studying for the Blue Seal before they even arrive. And that will mean more doctors, nurses, engineers, architects, and more powerful paychecks for our brilliant immigrants.
Another big concern is conversations in Manitoba about privatization. What is the Conservative Party's stance on privatization here in Canada in our healthcare system?
No one should ever be denied health care because they can't afford to pay. Our system should provide prompt, essential care to everyone who needs it using public health insurance. And we're going to continue to increase federal health care transfers to the provinces so that that public insurance can cover all of the essentials and that Canadians can get better care. Healthcare wait times have doubled under Justin Trudeau, and more people are forced under his government to pay out of pocket, whether it's in Quebec or NDP-controlled British Columbia or even Liberal-controlled Newfoundland and Labrador. The health system's been deteriorating under his watch. I'm going to reverse course on that.
What are those steps? What are those policies that you'll implement? I know we're talking about funding. How do you work in partnership with provinces? How do you get them on board?
Well, I'm going to sign a deal with them to speed up licensing for immigrant doctors and nurses. It takes, if you want to start, you're going to turn a teenager into a doctor. That's a 10-year project. Putting them through their bachelor, then on to med school, then on to residency, then through the exams. An extremely expensive process. And obviously we have to do it. But we've got 20,000 immigrant doctors waiting to practice. Why not get the provinces to sign on and agree with a Blue Seal standard? We already have a Red Seal for the trades. Mechanics, electricians, pipe fitters, plumbers, they all have one national Red Seal exam. And once you get that Red Seal, you can practice anywhere in Canada. In professions, it's totally different. We have young people who go to medical school in Ireland, Britain, Australia, the States, and they can't even come back and do their residency. But if they had a Blue Seal, they could do an exam and get the stamp and serve patients. That's the biggest obstacle. You can pour as much money as you want into the system, but if you don't have doctors and nurses to administer the care, it won't make any difference. So what we need to do is open up the gates of opportunity for foreign-trained doctors and nurses to serve our patients.
Speaking of immigration, it continues to be the main driver for population growth here in Canada, and many of our audience consists of newcomers, immigrants, and refugees. How will the Conservative Party continue to support immigration initiatives and attract new residents to the country?
We have to get rid of the million-person backlog that Trudeau's accumulated. He's mismanaged the system so badly that families are divided, employers go without workers, and refugees stay in squalor. What I will do is put in place performance standards for the many bureaucrats at Immigration Canada to more quickly process applications. Secondly, I'm going to make it our system employer-driven. So employers who need workers will have a fast-track ability to bring in those workers from abroad, first as temporary workers with permit, and second, turn them into permanent residents and citizens. We're going to speed up family reunification, particularly for grandparents, aunts, and uncles who are coming to provide childcare for the mom and dad to get to go to work. And then third, we're going to allow more privately sponsored refugees because we know private sponsorship by churches, mosques, synagogues, temples, gurdwaras, and nonprofits are the best way to integrate and achieve success for newcomers.
A lot of immigrants and refugees who arrive here in Manitoba, lots of them can't find employment. How will Conservatives ensure all immigrants and newcomers can find jobs and afford to live here in Manitoba?
The first thing is we need to make our immigration employer driven. If you have bureaucrats selecting immigrants, then they'll probably end up mismatched with the skills the job market requires. That's why you need employers to have easy, quick sponsorship when they prove that they can't find a Canadian to fill the job. And that way we know that the newcomer has a job right when they get off the plane. Secondly, we need to bring home lower prices for our immigrants. With this carbon tax, Trudeau wants to quadruple up to 61 cents a liter. It's making it unaffordable for people to eat, heat, and house themselves. So I'm going to axe the tax. We're going to cap government spending to balance the budget, bring down interest rates and inflation. And finally, we're going to incentivize our cities to free up land, speed up permits to bring homes that our immigrants can afford.
How do you balance the budget? What is different steps that is your government's going to take to get it there? Because unfortunately, to balance out things, things are going to have to get cut somewhere.
The problem is right now, Trudeau's keeps spending like this. We're going to be stuck with a bill for interest on all that debt. Right now, we're spending more on interest for the debt than we do on the entire armed forces. And every year we add to that debt, we drive up interest costs for the government and for the people. That means more programs will come under pressure. The best way to secure our programs is to secure our finances. So I will bring in a law, common sense law, called the dollar for dollar rule, requiring politicians find $1 savings for every new dollar of spending. I'll cut back on the $21 billion Trudeau is spending on outside consultants. That's a 100% increase. We're spending $1,400 for every Canadian family on consultants now to do work that the bureaucracy could do in-house. We'll get rid of wasteful initiatives like the ArriveCan app, which has failed to deliver any benefit, yet costs $54 million. This kind of waste and mismanagement is driving up debt, inflation, and interest rates, and I'll get rid of it. Let's bring home lower prices by axing the carbon tax and balancing the budget to lower inflation and interest rates.
When you arrived in Winnipeg today, you were talking about the carbon tax as well as the surge in violent crime that we've seen, which has reached the highest levels in 13 years. What policies will your party implement to reduce crime rates?
Well, we need a common sense criminal justice reform. Justin Trudeau has unleashed a crime wave right across this country, 32% increase in violent crime ever since he took office, because he brought in catch and release for their most violent repeat offenders. So that means that many offenders can be released the same day they are arrested. and commit a second crime within the same 24 hours. My policy is jail and not bail for the most violent, repeat reoffenders. Secondly, I'll stop giving out taxpayer-funded narcotics. Instead, put the money into recovery and treatment that will bring home our loved ones drug-free. And third, instead of targeting lawful, licensed, trained and tested farmers, duck hunters, and sport shooters, I'm going to put that money into reinforcing our borders to keep out illegal guns and putting repeat gun criminals in jail.
You know, you mentioned a couple of policies that you'll implement. How do we address the root causes of crime, which oftentimes comes from socioeconomic issues or as well as a lack of support services?
Well, listen, we know that after 8 years of Trudeau, more people are suffering, more people are hungry, more people are desperate. Homelessness is on the rise, and he's driven more people to the food bank. All of this, these massive government spending programs have driven up the cost of living and driven the poor into the streets. We need to reverse the policies that Trudeau caused the poverty in the first place. So that's why I'm going to bring home lower prices by axing the carbon tax and balancing the budget to lower inflation and interest rates. We need to make work pay by lowering income tax so that people bring home more of each paycheck. And we need to bring homes people can afford by removing the gatekeepers, freeing up land, and speeding up permits for affordable homes.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Poilievre, for taking the time to talk with us.
Excellent. Great to be with you. Thanks very much.
With You Multicultural, I'm Ryan Funk.